here at the Munich Security Conference, the war in Ukraine and how to end it, of course, being the dominant theme, also tensions in the transatlantic relationship. But in the back of a lot of people's minds has been what could happen to Taiwan if there is a kind of a shoddy peace in Ukraine that gives Vladimir Putin a lot of what he wants. Could that mean that Xi Jinping in China feels emboldened to make a move against Taiwan in the coming years? Well, we're joined now by the only delegate from Taiwan at the Munich Security Conference this year, Enoch Wu. Now, we should add, you're not a government representative. You lead an NGO called Forward Alliance, which is about civilian resilience in the case of conflict or natural disasters. But you are the sole representative of Taiwan here at this conference. So, Enoch, we'll talk about what it's like to be the only Taiwanese here in a minute. But first of all, what's been going through your mind as someone from a place that feels geopolitically vulnerable, where you've seen the focus on Ukraine and all of these concerns among Ukrainians and Europeans that Ukraine might be getting sold down the river?
Thanks, Richard. It's so important to be here. And as you say, I'm representing Taiwan, but as a member of Taiwan's civil society. What we're seeing transpired here over the last couple of days, I know that Vice President Vance and President Zelensky have dominated the headlines. But as you say, in the background are direct implications on what that means for not just Ukraine, not just Europe, but Asia as well. In the last few days, whenever we talk about the security challenges confronting all of us here, whether it's in the cyber sphere or the more conventional side of security challenges, when you think about who the drivers are, who the instigators are, Russia and China top the list. And I think autocrats in Russia, in China, in Iran, and even in North Korea are looking very closely at what is transpiring here over the last couple of days to better understand to what extent they'll be able to act with impunity. And that's why it's so important for all of us here to find a way forward in a multilateral way. I think we've learned over the last couple of days, I've heard many speakers talk about a wake-up call. And I think maybe collectively we've hit the snooze button one too many times. And it's an important reminder here that just like it's not a good idea to rely on one country for energy, one country for economic growth, the same goes for security. And that's why it's so important to be here. And that's why it's so important, I think, going forward to have more representatives from Taiwan, because we are in many ways the main event. As you say, implications here, we all stand in solidarity with Ukraine. We also know that what is being imposed upon Ukraine today may very well take place in Asia Pacific.
Yeah. So let's spell it out. I mean, if Vladimir Putin walks away from some deal with at least de facto control of a large part of Ukraine, how worrying is that for Taiwan?
A world where we work together in alliances to confront common challenges is a world that can keep all of us safe and ensure that we can continue to prosper as a global community. And if what comes out of these conferences is a different view, a different approach to international affairs, where folks retreat to their own turfs, own spheres of influence, I think that spells a very bad outcome, not just for Taiwan, but for sure for Taiwan, but also for our friends in Europe as well. In talks after talks, we are seeing, I'm hearing partners and friends in Europe thinking through how can we repair this relationship, this transatlantic relationship, to ensure that it is a constructive framework that has worked for all of us since the end of the World War.
So J.D. Vance has had his kind of rhetorical guns out for Europe this weekend, but Donald Trump has also had his guns out for Taiwan. I mean, he's been criticizing Taiwan as what he sees as unfair practices in trade. He's claimed that Taiwan kind of stole the chip semiconductor industry from the United States. There's talk of tariffs. The Taiwanese are trying to respond. Like, how concerning is that for Taiwan that it seems to be in the sights of the Trump administration?
I think it's so important to try to look past the rhetoric and understand the concerns and what's driving politics amongst our friends and partners. Because in democracies, all policies, including national security policies, have to have the full buy-in of its voters. And so we're hearing concerns from American leadership. And I think our best path forward, best way forward, is to raise the overall level of awareness of the collective threats that we do face. I think that's the best way forward. As you say, the last couple of days have raised a lot of eyebrows. And I think, again, walking through the halls, everyone is looking for a way to stop the back and forth, the perhaps public bickering, and remind ourselves that we're in this together. That there's a long track record and history of friendship and partnership that has and going forward. I think it's all of our hope that in Munich Security Conferences to come, we're not convening here again to rehash differences, or worse, to talk about turmoil in Asia.
I mean, another aspect of the Trump administration that's been hanging over here is the comments that Donald Trump has made in recent weeks about Greenland, for instance, saying we need Greenland for our security, and saying he wants to take it over, not even ruling out military action. Some people have said, well, this is kind of similar to the talk you hear from Vladimir Putin about Ukraine or Xi Jinping about Taiwan. Does it kind of make you shudder a little bit that the United States might be taking a kind of a neo-imperialist view of the world, similar to the Russians and the Chinese?
I think we would all be better served to not take a playground or real estate approach to international affairs. We've heard European leadership talk about democracy is not a place for disruption, and I think that is very much on point. Democracies have to respond to the will and to domestic public opinion. And it is our job through conferences and through gatherings like this one to take home the important messages and to share with the general public what is happening at the global stage and how national security issues are going to affect every single voter, every single family, every single child. And so if we can do that, do more public outreach, do more communication, I think we can overcome a lot of these superficial challenges.
So, I mean, those are some of the messages you're taking home to Taiwan. But of course, you're the only we were saying at the beginning, you're the only Taiwanese delegate here. You're not a member of the government. You have no official function here. How does that feel? Does it feel kind of, do you feel isolated here? It's quite sort of below the radar, Taiwan's presence?
Taiwan needs to be here for a couple of reasons. First, of course, Taiwan has always been a constructive force in global affairs, as we saw in the COVID pandemic. And as a responsible member of the global community, we should be represented at the Munich Security Conference. But beyond that, as I mentioned earlier, all the security challenges that we're talking about here originate out of a couple bad actors on the world stage. And so Taiwan is very much part of the main event. We are in it, whether you like it or not. And we would be better served, all of us, if Taiwan representatives were participating in the Munich Security Conference. Because one, it allows us to share with our friends and partners here what we're seeing on the ground. And two, it allows us to learn from common experiences here so that we can do a better job protecting our own security. Because Taiwan's security and Taiwan's stability has direct implications for what's happening, for the prosperity and the security of our European friends as well.
So, and I mean, your organization, it trains members of the public in Taiwan to deal with crisis situations. What kind of lessons are you taking back from Munich for your work back at home in Taiwan?
Well, for one, security has got to be a whole of society effort. Here we've heard discussants talk about and explore how the military can work more with the civilian sector to ensure more rapid mobilization in case of a crisis. That's true in Europe, that's true for NATO and the EU, and that's true in Taiwan. But in addition to that, so much of our work requires public support. And so coming back to this idea of democratic resilience, coming back to this idea of raising the level of awareness, I think I was just speaking with a German politician, and we have the same takeaway, and that is we need to break out of the bubble of Munich, break out of the Berlin bubble, break out of the Brussels bubble, because even though we're having such important conversations here amongst experts, we need to bring home the messages to our people and to our voters. And so that's a big challenge, but we must do that. That is democracy.
And you're leaving Munich feeling more vulnerable, safer. When you look at what's going on here in Europe and the read across that we've been talking about here, how do you feel about the state of the world?
The last couple of days, I've met with political leaders from Germany, from Europe. I've met with Asia security experts, including the leaders from the NGO realm and civil society. And, I'm quite optimistic because despite what we're seeing in the headlines, despite what's dominating the headlines, I see that in breakout room after breakout room, in bilateral conversation after bilateral conversation, right? People are looking for a way forward together. We're not relying on one single entity or one single government or one single country to do our work for us. We're collectively looking for a way to do more. And I think that's what, at the end of the day, that is a team sport, right? In some areas, the US might take a leadership role. In others, it might be Germany or someone else leading the European coalition. But that's the definition of team sport. We cover each other, and we don't let one player shoulder all the responsibility. So I think that is, despite the concerns, understandably, what I'm seeing is more and more people prone to action and thinking about a way forward, and that is a very positive trend.
Just one last question. There's a big Chinese delegation here. Have you had a chance to just have an informal chat with anybody from that delegation, or have you approached them?
We have not had any exchange, but I think they are looking closely at the situations in Ukraine and what that might mean for them in our part of the world. And that's why I think it's so important for us to not be complacent, to understand the risks and to understand the second-order effects of everything that we do. Our hope is that we don't come back to a future Munich Security Conference where the topic is turmoil in Asia, crisis across the Taiwan Strait. We will do everything we can to protect our country. We will do everything we can to ensure peace and stability, and we absolutely need more opportunities to exchange with our friends and partners, to share experiences, to exchange notes, because that's the only way we can stay safe together.
Enoch Wu, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Richard.